what we do want to do is give our panelists an opportunity to suggest things that we as individuals or that Class Act, which is an activist organization, can do to try to create some positive change in this direction. So I am going to ask Kelsey if you could give us a call to action that would be helpful to us, and then we'll go through with the others.
Sure. I think my call to action is to find a way to connect to water, not to view water as a resource for your consumption or to consider it in the context of what types of benefits it provides to you, but to find a way to build a connection to water where you actually give back to it. And that's going to look different in so many different ways for each of you, depending on what part of the world you're in, what your passions are. But oftentimes what I tell my students is the first place to start is one, identify the water body closest to you. That could be a well in your backyard. It could be a river down the road, and go and have a visit with the water. Maybe it's even, if you're in Southern Ontario like me, the massive precipitation, or like Jeff, the weather bombs that you are getting from the atmospheric rivers. Sitting with that water and just having an opportunity to visit with the water and build that connection. Sometimes we do not take enough. There's some really great research around forest bathing. I almost kind of want you to have a water bath in nature, visit with the water and find a way to then give back. We spend so much time going to water bodies that are pristine, beautiful beaches, but so many parts of water around the world are threatened. And when you go and visit those threatened places as well, you feel what the water is feeling. You feel that negative energy, you feel all of that. And hopefully it will inspire you to act in whatever capacity you can locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andy.
I'm going to speak briefly to something I didn't speak to earlier, is the need for investment in our drinking water infrastructure and the need for fair rates. I was at a conference recently when they talked about how do they hold down rates, particularly in disadvantaged communities. And it's basically by deferring maintenance and deferring necessary infrastructure. And we've got to fix that. We've got to put more money into infrastructure, and we've got to resist efforts like we now have in California to try to tie the rates to the cost of service in a way that means that you can't have rates that help the lower income people provide adequate drinking water, because the rates have to be tied to the cost of service. So recognize we need fair rate structures and we need more investment in safe drinking water.
Thank you. Jeff. First
of all, both of what my co-panelists said needs to move forward. I would say a call to action to focus activism on moving the conversation forward to action. And giving action and direct action and immediate action as much play as policy and politics and the science of politics as we're talking about climate. We have gotten lost in the past 2 decades on debating the science, and we have not had a parallel track of providing direct action, resources, finance, and infrastructure to mitigate and to help sustain our livelihoods in the places where we live. In all the ways that we discussed today, we should be doing that. And I think now is the pivot point to move that forward. And sort of the activism to our elected officials and everyone else around thinking about how we should do this in the ways that Kelsey and Andy explained, and then doing it, and not sitting on it for a decade, I think is most important to the survival of most of where we live.
Thank you. And Aram.
I want to just share a story that picks up on what Kelsey said, because I hope that that can be everybody's call to action. Kelsey, this was about a decade ago when I had my own water connection. And I promise you that I have since spent the last decade sort of obsessing about it. My husband makes fun of me that I have water on my brain. I'm not sure that's a compliment, but I am obsessed. I felt I was standing at the Indus River Delta before it gets to the Arabian Sea, and there's a massive barrage across it that was made by the British, as you can imagine, when they ruled a united India. And I looked left, so I'm sort of looking onto where the river is and at the barrage, and it was this beautiful flowing thing. And then you look on the right and the delta was completely dry. This was in high summer season. And very poor marginal fishermen, sort of, their livelihoods were in that delta. And now we've dried it out because of all the water diversions, right? Going on for about a century. So I cannot impress more on people the importance of having some kind of connection. I will say it's maybe it's embarrassing, but now I think I'm like in a phase of life, I actually felt claimed by the river. I felt claimed by the water, and it is a spiritual connection, and I now feel it, and it's a part of who I am. So I hope people begin to feel where we are and go make their own personal stories and connections.